Well, Kurt, we've got our Crown Jewel main event, champion versus champion, stealing the gimmick from the Survivor Series in somewhat recent years. Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes. They talked about the ring, but mostly they talked about who the alpha is in this current era. What did you think of the opening segment? What stood out to you?
I thought it was solid. It's kind of nice to see Seth Rollins take a break from the CM Punk feud for a little while.
Yeah.
If there's one plus that's coming out of this whole new thing with Cody Rhodes, it's definitely that. I'll say what stood out most was like kind of Rollins' feelings about kind of feeling left out, even though he's like the secondary champion, how he feels like he's taking a backseat to Cody and people look at him that way. I would say, yeah, that stood out. And more than anything was that closing line by Cody. In the 3 matches they've had together, he asked him basically, how many of them have you won? And he didn't need to say anything else after that. And you could tell Rollins was heated, salty, and like ready to throw down, but he was trying to keep his cool. So I have to say, like, even though this match isn't really anything to get like, super excited about, considering there's no title on the line and it kind of feels like a throwaway show, I think this match, especially considering the segment we got tonight, if there's anything to be wanting to watch in that show, it's going to be this.
Do you think with Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Roman Reigns, that Cody and Seth standing in the ring talking about, in CM Punk too, who got chance during that segment, that they come across as actually battling to see who the top alpha singular star is in WWE? Or does it feel like they're kind of pretending and not paying attention to all these other claims to the throne, not with belts right now, but at least in terms of push and presentation and their framing?
No, I think they're spot on with making that argument between the two of them, because with Cena, with Brock, and Roman, they're all part-time. In many ways, they have one foot already out the door. So, yeah, I think it's an accurate argument between Cody and, Rollins, because they're both full-time. They've both kind of like been 2 centerpieces of the company for the last few years. And with both of them being champions, yeah, you can definitely make that argument.
I definitely was happy to see Seth talking to someone and about someone other than CM Punk and AJ Lee. And he was very serious here. I mean, they kind of clowned around at WrestlePalooza. It was a little bit, I don't know, playful. But Seth got serious. And I do think that Seth can get into that mode. We see it online. He does see himself. He sees himself either as he portrays himself on TV as representative of the full-time workhorse leader of this era when other people are special attractions and they come and go, or he aspires to be that. And he wants to put it out there that I am that guy, hoping that, if you say it enough and you get enough main event matches, that people will start including you in that conversation. And I like this more serious version of him. And I thought it was notable he didn't have Becky with him until later on when Becky was kind of pacing and ranting behind him. What do you think of Seth's demeanor going into this? Because it does feel like this was him taking a turn for the more serious.
I think it's great. I feel like these kind of feuds bring out the best in him, like the initial feud with Cody that he had 3 years ago, and also the feud that he's been having with Punk, even if it's kind of dragged out a little too long. I feel like, yeah, definitely an angry Seth Rollins, and I guess a point to prove Seth Rollins is the Seth Rollins we get the best of. And what really showed in this segment tonight was, yeah, when you get him fired up, when you give him something to really sink his teeth into, and in some cases, like has some truth in, you could definitely bring something good out of him as far as his promo, as far as his mic skills, and as far as his intensity. I would say more than anything else in this segment tonight with him, that's what stood out most, was that intensity. And yeah, I'd like to see more of this from him. I mean, instead of like just placating to the crowd, doing his little movements and having the theme song and all that, even though he's supposed to be a heel, I feel like tonight we actually got like the legit heel Seth Rollins we've really been needing ever since he aligned with Paul Heyman a couple months ago. So if we see more of the Rollins we saw tonight more often, I'm all here for it. Hopefully we get more of it. But with Becky to play off of, it's kind of hard for him to kind of, lean more into that serious aspect of it.
Yeah. When Cody said to Seth, it shouldn't be complicated. He said this whole situation is complicated. But it shouldn't be, because recently Seth has made some questionable choices, and he said one of them is associating with Heyman, Breakker, and Reed, and he looked down at them, and he pointed out Heyman specifically. It seemed like kind of a moment of respect for Cody to go, Seth, you are, a lot of what you say you are, but if you want me to talk about how I feel about you, it's complicated because I don't feel great about who you associate with and some of your conduct. That it was about Seth, but it was also about Cody kind of walking the walk in terms of being the quarterback, the leader, going, hey, I would respect you, but I have mixed feelings because of who you associate with. I thought Cody was good in this segment. I thought that he handled the CM Punk chance well by not reacting and letting Seth take care of it. And I think Seth took care of it well on the fly. Not that they couldn't have anticipated the possibility. So I thought Cody came across well here too. And I wrote that editorial on PWTorch website last week saying WWE should start treating Cody like their top star and not, celebrating so much. And I get celebrating John Cena and making a big deal out of Brock Lesnar, no doubt about it. But Cody needs to be featured and framed as a big deal also, because he's going to be around when they're not. He's around more often than they are, and he's got more years left. And he's your champion, and he just beat John Cena. And so after I wrote that, the next day, they actually did reframe Cody versus Drew as the main event of the match, when the day before in the ESPN conference call, the ESPN people were calling Cena Lesnar the main event. So I think it was good that Cody started off the show and that it focused on him and that he got to show that he is a locker room leader in the way that he addressed Seth with composure and some gravitas. So I thought Cody came across well here. What do you think about how Cody came across here? And how do you feel about the way WWE has sort of, and I understand he was gone for a few weeks, but there's things you can do when someone's not on TV to still make it seem like they're your champion. They just scored a big win at SummerSlam, and they're still the centerpiece full-time act who are in their prime, and not shift all the attention and glory to these, to the John Cena retirement tour. So yeah, your thoughts on Cody tonight?
I thought Cody was great. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with this in the next few weeks because of all the history and bad blood between both of these guys. And yeah, I kind of miss Cody because he was gone for all those weeks filming Street Fighter. And yeah, it's kind of like not really felt like he's been the guy, even though he's been the champion again for almost 2 months now. And so I think that's going to take a little time because he just got back. I think it's going to take a little time before we could like really fully judge that completely. Like if it's still like a month from now and he still doesn't really feel like the centerpiece, then I'll grant you that argument. But until then, I think I would give it a little more time in that sense. But yeah, I think he definitely came off great here as the main number one guy. If you have any doubts of that, like I said, like that line, especially at the end, he really hit Rollins hard with that. And even if, certain parts of the audience aren't for Cody and they don't really cheer him as hard as other parts of the audience too, I feel like by the end of his promos, especially when he comes with a promo like he did tonight, he wins whoever his naysayers are over. And that's the makings of a great champion, a great leader. And I always saw that in him, although I will admit that match with Drew should not have main evented the show on Saturday. The mixed tag should have main evented the show on Saturday. But is what it is. I get it. He's the champion. He's the face and all that. So you want to feature him in the last match. So it's fine. But I never doubted ever since he won the title at WrestleMania last year that he was the guy. He was the centerpiece because it just feels that way naturally with him, whether he's in the main event or not in the main event. I've just always seen him as that guy ever since, just from how he carries himself and the quality of the main event matches he puts on. And that has not changed at all, even in this run.
Yeah. I mean, in our PWTorch online poll, and I talked about this on a couple of podcasts in the last week, CM Punk and AJ Lee against Seth and Becky was by far the most anticipated match of the night. By far. But I don't think it should have main evented. I think the world title should main event. I don't think a gimmicky mixed tag match should main event. Not because it is the match that's not because Cody Drew is most anticipated, but I think that even when the world title match isn't the most anticipated, Kurt, I think you want to protect the integrity and value of the world title and make sure that when your champion headlines a first event on ESPN, you're sending the message that no matter what your interest level is anywhere else, this is still about wrestlers eventually aspiring to become world champion. And the world title is our main event. Tony Khan's been really good about that in AEW. And I think philosophically, unless you have something so like an Undertaker streak match that's just beyond. Like, I think it's a rare exception when you shouldn't put either the men's or women's top title on last. I think that even if that night it doesn't feel appropriate, and I think you're right in that, I think damage is done. And I think there should, and this is why, like Al Archer in the chat said that Cody was on paternity leave and they focused on what was in front of them and now he's back. That's absolutely WWE's attitude. Of course it is. That's such an obvious given. They were focusing on what they had access to. As I went into great detail on a piece I put a lot of time into, and I hope everybody reads it if they haven't yet, damage is done when you focus on who's in front of you and make it seem like that you make it seem like Cody Rhodes' victory parade should just be delayed. Imagine Stanley Cup champions winning and you just delay the parade by 2 months because, you know, some of the hockey players have other plans. Like, you don't do that. It diminishes the value of everything that everybody is fighting for or playing for. Cody beat John Cena. That was huge. John Cena disregarded it.
I was there.
And John Cena afterwards didn't acknowledge Cody. He didn't thank Cody. He didn't he didn't act like he was sad he lost the title that a week before he said it was the most important thing in the world to him. I think he's been intentionally or negligently sort of disgraceful and more disrespectful to Cody all year. And I wrote about that. I'll point people again to my article on PWTorch. Check it out in the opinion section. I think Cody, you do damage when it seems like the whole company and the whole apparatus of ESPN and WWE corporate is making it seem like John Cena, who's winding down, is a bigger deal. And Cody beating Cena at the second biggest show of the year and regaining the title that was, by the way, the journey to that title is why WWE has a boom period right now. John Cena hasn't moved numbers. He sold merchandise, but he hasn't moved numbers. Cody moved numbers along with Roman Reigns in the Bloodline.
Yes, he did.
These other stars, as Punk, Drew, and Cody have alluded to carefully, politically, gingerly, these other big stars walked in on a hot product. They didn't make it hot. And it was good to see Cody back there. But I do think, I mean, this was all sparked by you going, the main event should have been the mixed tag. I get the spirit of that, but I believe you just don't, you need to put the world title in your top singular world champion attraction in that final spot for the symbolism of it. And if you can't justify it, then you should get the belt off him and move it to somebody else. Otherwise, you end up like the CM Punk title reign, where the only time during CM Punk's WWE title reign that he headlined was against John Cena or The Rock. Otherwise, he was always on the undercard. And it sent the message, it's a ceremonial gift to the hardcore fans and Punk, but we don't believe in him. We don't think he's actually the top star. And that's been the message since SummerSlam about Cody and all the hype with ESPN. That was the way they framed it. And tonight got back on track. And I think it's important that they do that. And I don't think the backlash against Cody has been significant. I don't think there's been a lot of people rebelling against him. I mean, been a couple circumstances here and there, but I mean, I think he's still getting cheered, and I think there's this defeatist attitude that the whole thing that happened in AEW is going to happen again here, or the thing that happened to Cena is going to happen. And I just think Cody is likable, and he was really good here opposite of Seth, and I just think WWE should believe in him again instead of doubting him.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think we can all agree on another thing. At least the John Cena and Brock Lesnar match wasn't the main event, because after that match we saw on Saturday, that would have been a disgrace if that match went on last. But in any event, I did like the Cody match with Drew on Saturday, but I just kind of feel concerned for the way it ended. It kind of feels like it's a one-off with the way it ended, and I feel like there's a lot more they can do with that story. Or maybe they will tell that story a little more, but they're just kind of taking a break from it with the whole Crown Jewel match coming up. Yeah, but in any event, Cody, like I said, I've definitely felt he could be that guy even before he won the title, because I remember when he first came back from the torn pec injury, I was hearing things about how on the house shows he was headlining, they were starting to do better business, and business was going up with him as far as being the headliner. So that's when I knew he could definitely be the guy. And it took a little while. We had to wait like a whole year for it to happen, but then when it eventually did happen, it was so damn worth it. And I feel like he's more than lived up to, being that guy and like being in that spot ever since. And he should definitely be treated that way. If he's not being treated that way, then that's messed up. But like I said, we got to give it another month before we can really jump to that conclusion of him being pushed to the side, because as of now, I don't look at him as any less than that. And I don't feel like he's been treated any less than that. But who knows? Things can change. Yeah,
well, I mean, when you have ESPN in their conference call not mentioning Cody and Drew and saying the main event is Cena versus Lesnar, and as I wrote my comment, I'm going to point everybody to it again because I laid out the case. If you went to ESPN.com, if you went to Roku and looked at the ads, if you everywhere you looked, the only graphic was Cody and Lesnar. And I'm not against marketing that match, but I'm against marketing it exclusively at the expense of Cody to this new mainstream audience that they think they're reaching. And I've studied wrestling history for 40 years, and I've studied what happened before it. When you don't treat your world champion and your full-time star as the primary star, when he's a proven draw, and you start favoring special attractions because they're a shiny new toy, or in Cena's case and Lesnar's case, they have friends in high places and political clout, you end up doing damage, and business goes down afterwards. You protect your champion, you protect your top babyface or heel draw, and you do not get all giddy over the fact that John Cena, the Peacemaker, is here and we're honored by his presence, or you don't let him run roughshod over the good thing you had going before he showed up. And there's a little bit of extra sting to it because Dwayne Johnson showed up and meddled and disrupted things. I'm making the case that Cody has proven himself, and management should not lose sight of the fact that they should treat him like today's Stone Cold Steve Austin during his peak, and don't start putting him off to the side. I know Kurt. There's a lot of people who are going to look at Cody. He comes back. He's fresh. He was away for a while, and I love him as much as ever. But if you step back, the symbolism of how he has been ignored since SummerSlam by John Cena, disgracefully or dismissively or whatever. And again, read my article because I lay out all the evidence and I describe what I think happened there. I think Cody has to be careful because he doesn't want to upset people in high places. But my call to management is start looking at who you have. It's like when you look outside of your house, for excitement when, your family's right there waiting for you. Cody's family, he's full-time and he's at his peak. And as some people are pointing out too, Darrell goes, Cody hasn't been booed lately. Sadler Vision 3 says Cody only got booed when he faced Cena. I think this thing about, Cody's being booed and we have to be careful or turn him, Cody's fed into that, but I think that's from people who live online. I don't think that's from people who are just watching crowd reactions. I just don't think there's signs of rebellion. I watched it happen in AEW and I could see why it was happening. I just don't see it happening here. And Al Archer jumps in and goes, I do think more focus should be on Cody. The underlying point is fair. But he says, you got one chance for a set of eyes for newer fans. Lesnar draws interest. Cena does too. Bring me the evidence. By the way, Cena hasn't this year. I mean, he sold merchandise, but attendance isn't up. He's a big deal. I'm not saying don't feature him, but it's not like he changed the course of business. In our reports, we put up the attendance. Their attendance is down. Most cities compared to where they were a year or two ago, the last time they visited. It's just the evidence isn't there. It's a perception people have. I just don't think the metrics are there to support sabotaging or undercutting Cody in the meantime. Al goes on, Cody isn't that guy. He's awesome, but let's not lose sight of the fact either. I don't get that, Al. Kurt, do you? I mean, Cody, no. Business was... Again, I made this point in my article. People read my stuff, all right? Cody, it has, during the last couple of years, has headlined more shows in front of bigger crowds on average than Cena did in any 2-year period during his peak. He's been the top babyface during the most expensive tickets, during the biggest crowds, during the expansion to stadium shows, during the expansion to international, when they signed the Netflix deal, like ESPN, and now the ESPN deal. And I'm like, what metrics are you guys looking at when you go, Cody's not a big star? It's an ensemble, and I get CM Punk and Roman Reigns, they're all part of it. I'm not saying it's all Cody. It's not like Stone Cold just reversed the momentum of the Monday Night War single-handedly, which he practically did, although Vince McMahon turning heel and a couple other supporting characters certainly helped who are underrated. But I'm very sorry, underrated. But what's that?
I was saying very underrated. They had a great cast, especially in 2000.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to say what I don't think enough people are saying, including people in corporate and the casual fans who were fans at WrestleMania 2, and they just think they know everything because they know John Cena is a mainstream star who they hear on Honda commercials. They think he's a bigger star than Cody. I see people who don't watch every week and don't read the reporters who know what they're talking about are acting like Cody's just this kind of role player who just we don't have better options. It's like, pay frickin' attention to what's gone on the last few years. Cody's a top star. Treat him like one, or else he won't be one anymore.
Yeah, I knew it when he had that match with Rollins, the torn pec match at Hell in a Cell. When that match was over, I said to myself, that's going to be the new top babyface in the company. That's going to be the guy that dethrones Roman Reigns for the championship. And it took 2 years, but it eventually happened, and he's been a success story ever since he came back. He is by far the prime example of someone who went from AEW to WWE, hell, who helped found AEW for that matter, and then he ended up going back to WWE and became one of their biggest babyfaces probably since John Cena.
Yep.
So, if you have any doubts of Cody being that guy, you need to definitely pay attention to the facts, pay attention to the actual information, because you will see things differently once you do see those things.
Just because someone's on ESPN commenting on wrestling doesn't mean they know what they're talking about, doesn't mean they studied the business, doesn't mean they're watching week after week, and it doesn't mean they're objectively standing back and listening to diverse points of view. They're part of a bubble, and they're serving ultimately the people who they are in business with. And they might be casual fans who are just spouting off in front of a very large audience. And those of you who are watching me are here for a different reason, and who watch what we do here at the Torch. And, we bring some history and some knowledge and some immersive week to week observations and studying of what's actually going on here.
Yeah. You think Stephen A. Smith watches the product every week?
Of course not. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I'm not throwing any specific person under the bus, so to speak, but when the ESPN executives were on, they're just getting giddy about this and acting like fanboys, that they're so excited that wrestlers are in the cafeteria hanging out with them. It's that's fine, but if you're Paul Levesque, you should have the clout to say, by the way, let's say we have co-main events on Saturday, because we have a world champion who we're going to be leaning on week after week, month after month, after Cena retires and when Brock has limited dates and Roman has limited dates. You've got a guy who's proven a draw. He's enthusiastic and ready to go. Lean on him. And don't act like when all the big stars leave, oh, here's Cody standing here. Well, now we have to settle for him as our, quote, main event. He's your world champ. He beat John Cena. Act like you've got a champion on your hands who helped create this boom period instead of ignoring him because he's on paternity leave. I don't know if they're punishing him for that or they just have this weird attitude of, well, if we can't use someone, we're not going to talk about him. Well, yeah, sure. If it's not your world champion lead babyface who was a as important as anyone, arguably, in this boom period that The Rock and John Cena walked into and are taking credit for and getting credit from people who don't know any better. Let's pause and introduce the show, and we'll get on to more on this and other topics from tonight's show. This is a Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post show for Monday, September 22nd, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the long-running Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter. Got a paper copy right here, still being published every week. There's our headline, WrestleMania 43, headed to Saudi Arabia. Lots of content in there. You can read this online in PDF format. I think there's, do I have Greg Parsons' column there? Yep. Reviewing Real American Freestyle Wrestling and his full-page feature column this week. You can get the PDF and all-text version of that if you don't want to subscribe to a paper copy. It is 2025. Some of you won't do that, but you can read it every week with exclusive content with a full VIP membership. PWTorch.com/GoVIP is where you go to not only get current daily VIP exclusive content. We did a VIP roundtable on AEW's pay-per-view Saturday night. Greg Parks and I did a 1-hour analysis of WrestlePalooza yesterday. And we have ad-free, commercial-free versions of our free shows like this one and a ton of other VIP features. And you get to unlock over 35 years of archives. I've been covering this business since I was in high school in the late 1980s, full-time since I graduated college with a journalism degree in education, internship at a major news station, worked at KFN Radio for a couple of years. Those shows are online, by the way, on demand from the 90s, which is really fun to listen back to a format like this, but where I actually drove to a radio station and sat around all that equipment back in the those fun radio days. So check it out. Dive in. There's an education waiting for you if you want to understand this business better than I think a lot of people that you might be consuming at the big corporate brands. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. And you'll see details on all the features that come with a VIP membership and also compatibility with Apple Podcasts, thus Apple CarPlay, and also Spotify, Patreon, and many iOS and Android apps too. No passwords, no advanced settings. We have a really slick system set up. You can also stream them directly from our ad-free VIP website. We're here to talk tonight's Raw. It started an hour earlier again, and note it will start an hour earlier next week also. And so just set your alerts for that because I know sometimes we are creatures of habit and can forget about that if you want to watch it live, although Netflix doesn't really care. Watch it whenever. But if you want to join us on the post show live, you got to watch it live to be up to date on things. Kurt Cadet, PWTorch contributor and podcaster, is with me as co-host. He's the other voice you've been hearing on the podcast side of things. And if you're on YouTube, you see his name there. Kurt, welcome back to the co-host chair. Always really fun talking wrestling with you. I love your knowledge and enthusiasm. Welcome back to the co-host chair.
Glad to be back. And yes, I write weekly reviews for Monday Night Raw, which I'll be working on this week. Also, co-host a show with Christopher Adams called Catching the Culture, where we talk about different movies and pro wrestling storylines that were happening around the same time and how they connect with each other. So yes, check out all of us for all that content here. And yeah, definitely one of the better episodes of Raw tonight. I'm not complaining about this 1 hour earlier start time at all. I hope they do it kind of more often going forward. So yeah, it was definitely nice to have it start an hour earlier. And we had some really good wrestling on the show tonight, especially with the women, I'd say.
Yep. Well, Kurt, thanks for your podcast. It's a really cool format you and Christopher have come up with, and I know you get back into the swing of things after taking a little bit of time off with it. And always enjoy your columns and your Raw Storyline Tracker analyzing the top feuds and some of the lesser than top feuds in the on the shows. So if you're watching us live on our YouTube channel, where you just search Wade Keller or PWTorch on YouTube to find us, you can subscribe. You can also find a link to our post shows in my TV reports at PWTorch.com. Hope you're all bookmarking that, creating tabs or whatever, checking us out every day. We got great content from people like Kurt Cadet. I've got my news stories, that editorial that I'm haranguing you to read if you haven't yet in the opinion section, and other great contributions on a regular basis from our team, along with fun flashbacks, by the way. We've got a lot of history to draw from. My 30 years ago Raw reports go up every week. You can look for those in the flashback section, see what I was writing about those weird early days of Raw. Though now we just entered the Monday Night War period in those 30 years ago segments. So now it's getting serious. But you can catch up on those past ones too, either in our back issue section or just in the flashback section. So a lot of cool stuff. Polls to vote in. Really encourage you, if you aren't doing it regularly, make us one of the sites you go to. PWTorch.com. Let's shift to you know what? We haven't heard from the heel Mark in a while, and he has called into the show, and people have been asking about him, wanting to know how he's doing. So before we move on to another topic here, I want to remind people you can be a caller. Look on our Patreon page or in my TV report at PWTorchVIP.com. You can be a caller to the show. I host live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. You can also be part of the chat. We'll interact with you there. You can also email us, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. The heel Mark has joined us as a caller. Mark, welcome to the show. How is it going, and how have you been?
Well, it's been rough. I was in the hospital for a month, and then they put me in a group home. And so later this week, I'll be going into an assisted living facility that's like suited to take care of me with the needs that I need with my disability.
You've been open about it before, but for people who are newer listeners, do you mind sharing what you're going through?
Yeah, I have multiple sclerosis, MS. It's a disease that affects the brain and the spinal cord. In layman's terms, my body is killing itself.
Yeah.
But everything's a blessing. I woke up this morning. I got air to breathe. I had roof over my head. I got to watch wrestling tonight. I mean, there's nothing to complain about.
Well, Mark, it's great to hear your voice. I know people were worried about you not hearing from you for a while, and I appreciate the update. I don't want to dwell on that, but I appreciate you sharing what you did, because I think you're here to talk.
Well, I appreciate the well wishes and such, and I'm sorry that I've been gone for so long. It's just I had some stuff that I had to take care of. I had some me time that I really needed to focus on.
Of course.
I'm here to talk wrestling.
Good. So what's on your mind about Raw tonight?
Okay, so first off, I love the new Bayley. I really do. Like this where she's like going in her head, like, no, get the voices out of my head. And I'm like, yeah, I'm digging it. I don't know how far they're gonna go with it, but I'm digging it. I really am.
Well, let me pause you, Mark, and I want to hear from Kurt on this, because I haven't talked to Kurt about Bayley, Mark. So today, Bayley just, kind of split personality, kind of snapping, unpredictable. Poor Lyra Valkyria is the victim of this. Kurt, what have you thought?
So far, so good. Ever since what happened last week, I really started to come around to this whole storyline. Like, now that we're seeing it actually play out, as opposed to those pre-tape vignettes where she has the voices in her head that you can hear and all that stuff. So now it feels a little bit more realistic, where she's cool one minute, she's friendly one minute, but then the next minute she just snaps and just goes off on Lyra. And I don't know what the hell Lyra's problem is, because she told Bayley straight up the day after SummerSlam, stay out of my life. And now all of a sudden she wants Bayley back in her life again, and she wants Bayley to be her friend again. So that I don't really understand in that sense, but I've been enjoying how Bayley's been going, from one personality to the next. I think it's a nice switch up for her character. It kind of beats what she was doing before, where she was kind of directionless and not having much go on. So I'll definitely take this over that. And it definitely gives you kind of something to look forward to see where they go with it next, and how far it can go from what they've done so far. And yeah, it's definitely been one of the better parts of the show. I feel like now they're getting into more of a groove with Raw in the most recent weeks. Ever since I would say the start of the new month, they've been in a better groove, and this has been one example of why. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how much more Bayley just ravels into madness and just loses her damn mind. It's gonna be some fun television.
Bayley's playing the role well. Once we got past the just ridiculousness of getting to hear her inner thoughts, I won't rant on that again, but I just have to underline how stupid that was. But now that we're past that, we now are into getting to see this play itself out. And as you said, Kurt, it's been a blast so far. I mean, they have to be careful they don't make fun of people with legitimate mental illnesses. But there are people who in our lives surprise us, not because they're diagnosed bipolar, but because they're moody, or they're going through stuff. And 1 second they're thinking, I want to handle things this way, and the next second they're snapping at you. And so obviously they're playing that up in a dramatic pro wrestling character type way. I think that everything you said, Kurt, about how Bayley's kind of lost before this is a strength of this story, because we watched her in real time kind of struggle to get traction. Should I be a heel? Should I be a face? Was sort of the meta question about her, because she had been both. And so she has this inner battle, as clumsily as it was executed during those I think 3 weeks of vignettes. We are now seeing a manifestation of somebody who is sort of going through the equivalent of a midlife crisis of sorts, a late career crisis of, am I still relevant? How can I succeed? And missing some of the major shows has played into it, where you would go, I understand her kind of cracking under the stress of, is my career over as I knew it? And can I be relevant again? And I think Lyra is a good foil for this, because Lyra, for all of her try-hardness of trying to get over, and some people thinking she's a little overpushed or a little awkward, not quite ready for this level of a spotlight, she is likable. And she seems like she is a victim of something that she doesn't deserve here. So, I said all along, when I was critical of the presentation of the Bayley dual personality character, or conflicted Bayley, I thought it would be a fun storyline and good for her. I just didn't like the execution of telling the story the way that they chose to. Mark, back to you for additional thoughts.
Yeah, I was told by everybody in my wrestling group, Kevin and Ross, they were like, hey, you better get on Wade, because Wade's dissing Bayley bad. He's dissing your girl. And I'm like, well, when I get over there, I'll tell Wade that Bayley's the GOAT, and he needs to realize and put himself in his place, because Bayley will come out here and smack Wade around. It's okay.
Well, but I think I'm Bayley's. I'm a friend of Bayley in being critical of the way it was produced. I wasn't critical of Bayley. I was critical of WWE's creative choice to give us the window into her voices in her head. That wasn't a dig at Bayley or her push or the direction they were going. So that's just people misinterpreting or not paying attention to what I was saying. It was a presentation of her character, not dissing Bayley herself.
Well, I agree, because I listened to some of it, but they had told me, you better go defend your woman. Gotta go defend Bayley. Kurt, I know you don't know me, but Bayley is that's my absolute favorite. I am the biggest Bayley fan in the world. And I'm not going to lie, when they were showing everything, I was thinking, she's not on SmackDown, but man, would that look really good with the Wyatt Six. I would love it if she was in the Wyatt Six, because Bray Wyatt, rest in peace. I mean,
Kurt, where do you think this is going, by the way? Let me throw that good comment from Mark, or intriguing comment from Mark. Like, where does Bayley end up?
Oh gosh,
Sorry, Mark. I want to get Kurt's thoughts on this, and then I'll throw it back to you.
Where does this go? Well, I hope it doesn't go to the Wyatt Six. I think the whole Wyatt Six thing, I think we've gone as far as we can go with that. I don't know what the hell he do with that whole thing from this point on. I don't want to see Bayley end up with them. I think that would be a waste, in all honesty, if that happened. If it does happen, maybe have it happen temporarily, like when Daniel Bryan was in the Wyatts, but I don't think that's the direction it should go in. I think eventually she needs to give Lyra a huge, gigantic beatdown, a horrible, vicious, violent beatdown, to the point where Lyra has to be carried out on a stretcher, taken out in an ambulance, all that good stuff. I think it eventually needs to get to that point to really sell this, darker side of Bayley, and more, off a rocker side of Bayley. I think that would definitely help sell that a lot more. So I think it definitely goes in that direction. As far as her getting another women's title run, I don't think that title is really necessary for this feud. I feel like if she just continues to go down this dark path, and then just goes through people like Lyra, or goes through somebody else, maybe Io Sky down the road or something like that, I think it could definitely work in that sense, where she's a strong heel character on the show, or one who doesn't necessarily need the title.
Mark, I'll throw back to you. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. I think Bayley's at the tail end of her career. As much as I love her and I don't want to see her go, I think she's at the tail end of her career, where right now she's where she needs to be. She needs to be sitting in the mid-card, helping the mid-card talent, the younger talent like Lyra, like Roxanne Perez, and push them up to the level where they need to be. I think she's right where she needs to be right now. She's never going to, I don't want to say never, but I can't see her in a title picture unless it's one of the women's mid-card titles. That's all I can say, about that. But I had a couple other things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
But do you
go ahead.
want me to jump?
Yeah, let's shift, Mark.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Okay, so I know they got Stephanie going in the Hall of Fame. I don't disagree that Stephanie doesn't deserve a Hall of Fame spot. She's done a lot of things for wrestling, especially for this company. But my problem is, I honestly, with the retirement tour, you would have thought, oh, John Cena's going to be your headliner. No, okay, well, you gave it to Stephanie. All right, but what about Bray Wyatt? Like, isn't this Bray's time? Like, that's what I wanted to bring to you guys. Like, don't you think that this is Bray's time to put Bray in the Hall of Fame?
What do you think, Kurt?
He should definitely go in. Absolutely. I mean, who knows? Maybe he still will go in. I mean, let's talk about this, guys. The Hall of Fame isn't until April. There's still another 7 months to announce Bray Wyatt, even John Cena. John Cena could even still go in next year. I think that would make the most sense too. So just because Stephanie was the first person announced, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to be the headliner. She might be. It's still going to turn out.
I don't think Stephanie will
feel like-
headline. I don't think Stephanie.
Yeah.
I think they know better than that. I could be. I mean, I could be wrong. I think. I don't know.
It's still too early to tell. Yeah, it's not until April.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of time. I mean, I think it would be good to have a ceremony for Bray, an induction ceremony for him. But as Gene Albert 13 in the chat says, it can still be Cena. So yeah, I wouldn't panic yet, Mark. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Stephanie.
No,
I mean, I don't take the WWE Hall of Fame super seriously. I mean, I mean, I don't discount it entirely. I mean, I know it's important for people.
Yeah.
And there's symbolism and there's a certain amount of criteria that goes into it inconsistently. There's a certain level of criteria, but you can tell who's really a top level Hall of Fame induction versus more ceremonial. But Stephanie's a big part of this company. And I think there's some politics too. You know, she's going in where, you know, Vince is out of the picture. Shane is out of the picture, but Levesque just went in. But I think it makes sense for her, given her role on TV and as a McMahon, and I mean, I'm fine with it. I don't have an issue with it, but I don't think she should be the final speech of the night.
No. I really thought, like, if we're gonna do it, like, we didn't do it the year he passed, but you got his dad and his uncle in, so you put them in. So that I thought was perfectly fine. But I thought last year Wyatt would have went in, but he didn't. And maybe it's just me being a massive fan of Bray Wyatt, but sure. I really think if you're going to put Bray Wyatt in, he should be the headliner. But now with the Cena being the farewell tour, I agree with you. Put Cena in next year in Saudi Arabia, right? But this year, you know, maybe we should do Bray Wyatt this year. That's just my opinion. But if you're looking at other nods, why not put Sabu in this year as well? Like, I'm just saying, Sabu's a legend. He's done so much for the wrestling. People that don't watch ECW really should go and watch some Sabu, because Sabu's a legend. Last thing I really wanted to talk about, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of heat for this. I know I will. But in my own personal opinion, I truly believe that Julia is far more talented than Stephanie Becker. Not taking anything away from Stephanie. Stephanie is phenomenal. But I think Julia is more talented. And to honestly see Stephanie getting the women's title on Saturday, right? And Julia is in a mid-card title that doesn't really have a story, and you barely see her on TV, but you're pushing Stephanie every single week, and I'm just sitting here like, I don't get it. And I wanted your guys' thoughts on that.
All right, go ahead, Kurt. I saw your reaction to that.
Well, Julia is talented, but the thing with Stephanie Becker, she is much more marketable for one. That whole Devil's Kiss thing, her entrance with the Devil's Horns, and yeah, just her whole presentation. Yeah, I mean, I mean, it just screams market me right now, market me right now. And yeah, she is very talented in the ring. She put on an incredible match on Saturday where she won the title. The fans are really behind her. The fans are into her. And you can say whatever you want about like her, like not being able to speak English well and whatnot. I know we heard some of that in her promo tonight. But even with that aside, she checks all of the boxes of what you would want in a female WWE superstar in 2025. So even if Julia is the better in the ring, I'm not going to argue with you on that. But just Stephanie Vaquera has all those other qualities and attributes that make her kind of more of a focal point, I guess, for the company. And that's the reason why.
Yeah, Sailor Version 3 says, going off their in-ring work, Stephanie is miles ahead of Julia. Julia had more hype before coming, so she probably has more to show, but Stephanie is better right now. Derek Mitchell says, I think we've collectively forgotten about Julia from week to week. Al Larcher says, neither title has a story, and Stephanie has an easy story to tell. Kurt, what do you think about the way that they have followed up on, or really presented, Stephanie's win? Vaquera doesn't have a long relationship with WWE's main audience, but they are flagging her. And this kind of gets to what I say about flagging that Cody's our top star, even if you think there's this, other thing going on that you want to take advantage of while you have it. You can't just discard or forget about the other thing. How you frame people and how you flag people matters to perception. And with Stephanie Vaquera, they are flagging her officially through what they're saying about her. Wade Barrett is already calling her this like generational star who's going to be the centerpiece of this division for years to come. They don't say that about everybody, and I think they keep their credibility in that realm. They don't usually give that kind of hype to somebody it's a reach. I think they're also doing it because Vaquera is limited on the mic. And so they feel like they have to do a little bit more of the heavy lifting to get people to, because they're not going to connect with her in the same way that they connect with the bombastic talkers. But they know they have something with her. Kurt, talk about her presentation and underline also a little bit what you think is marketable about her and what WWE should emphasize going forward.
Well, the devil's kiss, you have to have her do that as often as possible because there's just that reaction that she gets every time she even sets up for it before she even does it. Yeah, you could definitely tell there's something there. So you can't deny the people that. And yeah, just her looks. I mean, she's an attractive woman. That goes without saying. But with like the devil's ears and then the red outfit one week and the blue outfit the other week. And yeah, just the theme music, which apparently she had to fight with WWE to keep. That's another thing about her that stands out. Yeah, just like Io Sky, like very similar to Io Sky, she just has like a genuineness to her where like the people can connect with it and the people can also relate to her because yeah, she's not from America. She's kind of had to like, fight her way up and fight her way to get to where she is now. So that's also relatable about her too. And I kind of felt that maybe her getting the title on Saturday was a little soon because she was barely featured on TV in the weeks leading up to WrestlePalooza. But the moment where she did win the title was a genuine happy moment with her celebrating with her father and just like the look on her face afterwards. And then her and Io Sky like sharing a moment after the match. So yeah, there's just so many different reasons why to like this girl and why people would want to cheer for this girl. And yeah, you would be a fool to like not take advantage of that and put her in a prime spot. As far as how her title reign goes, it's too early to tell because she just got the title 2 days ago. So we have to kind of see where she's positioned, what title matches she's in, and when she is in title matches, whether or not they're given top billing. So yeah, only time will tell with how WWE views her as a champion. But if you consider the fact that she is the champion on their flagship show, they need to treat her like such because they made that mistake with Io Sky earlier this year with her title reign, how she was doing fine for a while, but then after a while, they just stopped really, focusing on her the way they should have been. So hopefully they don't make the same mistake with her. And if they don't make that same mistake and treat her as the star that she is, then it can go on to be a great, successful title reign. And she could be that star on that same level as a Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, etc. But we got to wait and see.
I had mentioned that if they're going to give the belt to Stephanie, like you said, and some people in the chat are saying it feels a little soon, just because she was out for a while and hadn't built that relationship up. Because, we saw how it worked with Cody and Jay and Sammy. It's so much is about the journey. So much is about ups and downs. And I wouldn't want her to get the title unless they're ready to really commit to her and have something special in mind for her. And it seems like so far so good on that front. They didn't give her the title because, well, we want to make news on a PLE. They gave her the title because they're committed to her. And I'm okay with shaking it up. I think sometimes you want a wrestler who struggles and has a long journey. And other times you kind of want to crown someone early on and just go, this person is a star out of the gate. And, we see that in the NFL. There's a lot of quarterbacks who bloom late. They seem like they're busts after being a high draft pick, but 3-4 years in, they become a serviceable or above average quarterback. And then other times they just are great, right away, or whatever, any kind of star player in any league, NBA, similar stories, NHL. So with Stephanie, they're just saying, you know what? She's beating the best. She's beating the best quickly. We ought to pay attention. And she's really good in that realm. So I like that. I like that aspect. A couple other comments here, Mark, and then I'll throw back to you on this. Derek Hubbard said, Mark, I must disagree with you. I have not seen much from Julia. She has a great look. Her wrestling ability is graded on the Japanese women curve, which he puts in parentheses, is highly overrated. Julia hits more moves, and that is it. He adds, I'm a fan of Stephanie, but I think she is overrated as well. Saturday showed her weakness. In my opinion, she brought all the energy. Stephanie missed some of her moments to grab the crowd and drag them along. Let's see, I wanted to throw up another comment here. Sadler version 3 said, I thought it was too soon for Stephanie to get the belt, but it seems like they want to rocket ship a new star. So I get that logic. And L. Larcher says, I'm concerned Stephanie's look doesn't match her character or lack up. She's just a super fan living her dream instead of the dark angel she comes to the ring as. Kurt, your thoughts on any of those comments?
Yeah, like I said, I understand, maybe thinking that she's not ready and that you think that maybe she needs more time to build a connection with the audience before she gets this title. But like I said, it was a smart move because she's a new star. They want to make a new star out of her. So I guess they kind of made the most sense to put the belt on her. And especially considering that EO has her hands tied right now with the whole Asuka, Rhea Ripley situation. Maybe it was a smart move not to put the title back on her right now. So, yeah, I mean, this is all going to be something that we're going to have to wait and see how it turns out because it's too early to tell. But just from the reaction she's getting so far and the presentation so far, I think it definitely has the potential to be a success.
Gene Albert 13 in the chat says, Stephanie is as good as Julia. It's just how it's going. David Chase says, Stephanie and Julia are pretty women, but they'll never be larger than life superstars. If you think so, you must have just started watching WWE. Or you just have a different opinion. I think people think they can be larger than life superstars, but I think they know with Stephanie Vaquer that they're having to take a different approach with her. But I like that. I don't mind looking at a wrestler and going, here's where their talent is. They have really good wrestling. They have good wrestling skills that they're bringing to the table. They have a way to connect with fans. They have a look that fits in. Triple H always talks about, we don't always need three we don't need three shortstops. Sometimes we need a catcher and a left fielder too. You want to have different people playing different roles with different strengths and weaknesses. But Stephanie right now, they're telling a story with her, which is she's a fan who this has been a dream of hers, and her father supported her, and they're really leaning into that. I do not. I don't know how much that meshes with what her character is supposed to be, Kurt. I mean, do you have a concern that they're getting wrapped up in the real life? Her dad supported her. This is a dream come true, and she's a super fan, and she can't. Versus trying to define her in a way that lasts beyond the achievement in the dream coming true.
I feel like it's smart for them to lean into the whole thing of her dad supporting her and how her dad was her biggest, cheerleader throughout her career when she was trying to make it. Yeah, that just makes her more relatable and, more likable to the fans. I think, leaning on to things like that makes perfect sense, especially with the language barrier and whatnot. Yeah, I think it's smart to lean on these kind of things so that people can, build that connection with her because they're not going to be able to build that connection as strongly with her promos. So it's better to lean on things like this. And as so far right now, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's perfect to lean into that.
Derek Mitchell says, there's a sameness with some of the women capturing the title, so I don't have a problem with Stephanie becoming champion. Run with it. See where it goes. Darrell Freeman makes a good point. This is supposed to be the first time WWE allowed a new face to have a speaking segment and allowed them to talk without having it lead to a setup for an angle. I was pleasantly surprised by that. Were you, Kurt? There was no interruption as they talked, especially someone who isn't super fluent on WWE promos.
I thought Asuka was going to come out and confront her. I thought Rhea was going to come out and tell her, congratulations, but I want a title shot at some point. But yeah, they did none of that. So I guess they're going to maybe save that for next week whenever we get the winner of the triple threat from SmackDown to see who she faces at Crown Jewel. But yeah, I didn't see that coming. That's the same thing with the Macho Man and Elizabeth's wedding, where the wedding went off without a hitch. Yeah, something you don't see coming, but it's a nice surprise.
In the chat, Sadler version 3 goes, I was shocked there was no interruption too. I liked that they just let her speak. Mark Biscetti says the way they're framing Stephanie feels a lot like Sasha Banks' first run, the fangirl run to becoming her future self. I do think this notion that every segment needs to lead to an angle, every match needs to have some sort of controversy, is a flawed, but it's an earned perspective that fans have because of the way wrestling has been booked. I like that Cody Drew is just sort of for now a one-off match where Cody won. No big thing afterwards because they're pivoting to Cody Seth right now. But it is more than that in the sense that Drew, obviously, this is going to affect him because he keeps losing focus and he's going to have an excuse and a rationalization, and this will play into his future promos. But I think you want to have a baseline where, so not everything just feels absurd constantly, that it's just, there's never just a match that's a match. There's never a promo that's a promo. And with Becker, it was a promo, it's just a promo. And it takes away the predictability of it. And sometimes you want to send a signal. It's actually okay to just have a wrestler talk about a win and a title and their story, and then it ends and we move on. It's same thing. It's okay to have a champion retain a title in a main event and not have it be some big talking point. WWE is, I would argue, too focused on giving people moments, and it like this notion that all wrestling fans want to see are moments can become a self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense. It can define what fans expect to get in order to consider themselves getting their money's worth. It's up to WWE, and I've been really talking about this in recent weeks. WWE should get in the business of letting fans know that you get your money's worth when you get to see wrestlers fighting for championships and you get to see match outcomes. Stop focusing on this notion that you're training fans to believe if they don't get to see a moment, then they haven't gotten their money's worth. Derek Mitchell said, "We understand the philosophy the champion should have main event of the show, but I'll say it again, the priority is making moments more than appeasing wrestling purists." I disagree with that framing, Derek. I don't think you have to be a wrestling purist to think that the best way to promote professional wrestling, the most successful way to promote wrestling, and the easiest way is to protect your championship, have strong heel-face dynamic most of the time, the vast majority of the time, and give clean finishes to matches more often than not. And when you do that, you have this baseline. And what you're saying then is pro wrestling as an art form is enough. And the story we tell is about matches where there's an outcome that feels earned more often than not. And when it's not, there are consequences. When you break that baseline, then you have to hot shot. You have to do moments. You have to do things, the ephemeral, just quickly fading, largely inconsequential viral moments that, are these metrics that people point to. Okay, so millions of people, scroll and look at something for 10 seconds. They weren't watching WWE before that, and they're not going to watch it after it. Or if they were, you got no revenue from that moment anyway. It's overrated. You got to get back to the structural foundation. And by the way, pro wrestling's emulating sports. Sports get that. At halftime, in between plays, there's cheerleaders, there's fun stuff with the crowd, there's celebrities who return, there's stars who might introduce the game or speak at halftime. But in the end, the stars are the players on the field trying to win a game. And in the end, the score is what matters most, not a moment. You market the moments, but you can't lose sight of the fact that it's the outcome of the contest and the players who are actively trying to win that contest. That's the key. I'm not going to give into it, as Derek, I think, is asking me to do, or maybe he's just acknowledging what WWE is doing, which is giving up on the notion that the title and the current champ should be championed and as the centerpiece, most important thing. And that, well, no, we just have to feed the fans viral moments. Because again, fans, if you condition fans to believe the most important thing is the outcome of the main event, and you condition them to believe the world champ always gets to main event, you don't need those viral moments and you don't need celebrities as much. So, just kind of everyone in WWE should keep their eye on that and don't give into a bad philosophy just because it's what's being done. Well, anyway, so that's my thoughts on that. Let me go back to Heel Mark, who's been patiently waiting for us to wrap up that sidebar and topic. Mark, what else have you got for us?
How you were talking about, guys that are drafted and then just late bloomers. All I'm going to say is Baker Mayfield. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say. Go Bucks.
I was listening to a podcast earlier talking about him. Yep. A perfect example.
Oh, yeah. I was just on my buddy's podcast right before yours. He's a Buccaneer podcast I was on. So
Yep.
anyway, my question I asked, I kind of really didn't get an answer of what I was looking for. I was kind of like getting your thoughts on, like, do you think WWE is just not pushing Julia for a certain reason? And it just seemed like when I asked the question, it was like more focused on Stephanie than Julia, which I was kind of like, okay, yeah. And I agree that I agree with Kurt. I think that they pulled the trigger too fast, too soon with Stephanie. But I'm just sitting here wondering, like, are we not pushing her? Is it because she doesn't translate well, or?
So, first of all, Kurt, do you think they pushed Stephanie too soon, or were you concerned about it, but you, like me, are satisfied with the fact that if they did it, at least they're owning it, they're making a big deal out of it, and it looks like it's part of something very deliberate?
No, the Stephanie thing, I think it's justified. Like I said, it mainly happened too soon because of the lack of TV time she was having in the lead up to WrestlePalooza, but since it's happened, I feel like it's been a success and it's been working so far. I don't think they're going to like push her to the side the way they did to Julia when she got the United States title. But I mean, only time will tell to see how great this title reign does end up. As far as Julia goes, maybe it's like the language barrier, maybe the lack of charisma or other parts of her character that she doesn't maybe have down yet. She's been getting pushed to the side because if anything, her publicist or her sidekick or whatever, I feel like she gets more TV time and attention than Julia does, in all honesty. But
Mark, I'll also say this, and this kind of plays into the NFL analogy. You can have a great backup quarterback, but if you have a starter, you can't start two quarterbacks. Who do you want Julia to displace that WWE has been pushing instead? Other than you might say Stephanie, and we get that. But if you think, well, they've
well, you got to look on the SmackDown roster,
right? So who would you? Who are you displacing? What push? Because why rush? I mean, they're not burying her. It's not like she's the centerpiece world champion who's being ignored. She's just an up and comer, and they're telling a story different than with Stephanie. It kind of goes to, again, it was a podcast I listened to earlier. They're like, everyone needs to be patient when it comes to new quarterbacks who get drafted. If they're not successful in the first year and a half, it doesn't mean they won't blossom later. Settle down, everybody, and trust the process and be patient. And I think with Julia, I'd say that, Mark, don't lose faith. I think they're high on her. I think they're figuring out what to do with her, but they're not going to displace others who are getting top pushes right now to tell her story. I think they have a bit of an embarrassment of riches. I don't know. That's probably not the right phrase, but they are obviously, Tiffany and Jade are people that they're more invested in and feel present themselves in there's a diversity to the presentation in contrast to Stephanie and Io and Rhea. And Julia, they might think of someone they want to bring along a little slower, but it doesn't mean she won't end up landing in a main event spot someday.
Fair. Fair enough. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, and everybody, thank you so much for the prayers and well wishes. I truly appreciate that as well.
Stay in touch. Stay in touch as best you can, Mark. Hang in there. Keep watching wrestling.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Great to hear from Mark and get an update from him. Mike Steff in the chat says, I think they rushed Julia to the main roster too fast. It's clear they had no plans for her. Ryan Solorio in the chat says, I feel like they are going to build a faction around Julia. And Derek Mitchell says, it's a good problem to have with a lot of future main event women stars. Let's be patient with Julia. L. Archer says, I think plans are TV time until people know who she is and what she offers. And L. Archer says, I'm with Wade. Let's give us time to get to know her and start having feelings for her. And Kiana James, Derek just goes, you're saying the sidekick, Kiana James, Derek Mitchell says. Kurt just wants to give Kiana her the name shout out. Okay, very good. Let's talk about the Jey Uso story with LA Knight, with Jimmy. We see Bayley's kind of going through some stuff. Jay's going through some stuff right now. I find it compelling. I find it believable. I think Jimmy is shining in this role. I think LA Knight is keeping his integrity. And I'm curious where this all lines up. So what do you think of what they're doing, and where do you think it's going, Kurt?
I think it leads to a Jey Uso heel turn. And I know a lot of his hardcore fans aren't going to like to hear that, but it is happening. His mannerisms, the way he's been acting lately to his brother, obviously the whole situation with LA Knight, it has heel turn written all over it. And I have to be honest, I am all here for it. as great as he is as a babyface, as much as the people are behind him and how he has that great entrance and all that, I think a heel turn would be nice and refreshing for him, because even so far with the stuff they've been doing with him on TV with the storyline has been some of the best stuff he's been doing all year, and arguably even better than the stuff he was doing with Gunther heading into WrestleMania. So yeah, I'm all here for a Jey Uso heel turn. I've loved how he's like been, kind of, going more to the dark side in recent weeks, and even tonight, like taking advantage of Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed's interference to beat LA Knight in the match they had tonight. I think that was also kind of like a sign that he's heading in that direction. Yeah, it's definitely a refreshing part of the show. It was also refreshing that they didn't main event the show for the first time in a month tonight, because they've been kind of doing that the last like 3 weeks or so. So that was nice to see too. And it's funny, I think we kind of talked about this last time I was on the show when Jey Uso attacked Punk and LA Knight, like right before the Flash in Paris PLE. I said that if anyone was going to turn heel out of the three, it would have been LA Knight. And fast forward to 1 month later, now I'm talking about Jey Uso becoming a heel. And when that both first thing started, I'm like, no way Jey Uso's going to turn heel. He's too popular. And a month later, I'm like, yo, it's inevitable. This dude needs to turn like within the next month or so.
I think it's more ballsy when you turn someone from babyface to heel when they're really popular. And because that means, one, you're giving something up to get something that you think has more legs to it. And I think they feel like we gave Jey a mega push this last year. I mean, we got so much more out of him than I think than they think. They're probably surprised by how much they got out of Jey as a top babyface over the last year. And I think they see him now as somebody who they just got everything out of it you can without moving it down the card. So how do we take that popularity and that bond that fans have with him by living in real time through this rise and this experience with him? How do we turn those emotions, those intense emotions, upside down? And also, I mean, is there a little bit of, I mean, I think he ends up facing Cody in a feud. Do you think he can headline a PLE, a Royal Rumble type event or something against Cody as a challenger? Is that, do you think, part of what's going on here, or is this more about the Vision or Heyman's group? Because, I mean, the fans still chant OTC when Jimmy and Jay and Knight are out there, so that seems like that's going to be part of it. But the interaction with Cody tonight doesn't feel purely accidental unless they're just trying to get Cody across the sort of.
Oh, yeah. When him and Cody were talking, and like Cody was giving him his advice, and then Jay was like, thanks, I appreciate it, man. Right when Cody left, the look on Jey Uso's face said it all. He wants that title. He's going to go after that title. I think it definitely is a PLE-worthy match, possibly a Royal Rumble or another show. But, yeah, he wants that championship.
Absolutely. L. Archer says, spot on, Wade. We hit the ceiling with Jey. It's time to sell while the value is still there, or turn him and get a completely different type of story told with him. Darrell Freeman says, again, the Jey story is getting better with the conversation he had with Cody and how he was looking, making faces, and he kept looking at Cody's title, and then how he looked at Cody afterwards. Yeah, he just, kind of glared at Cody as he left. So he kind of played friendly, but as soon as Cody's back was turned, the camera stayed on him, and he's like, that guy, that belt, I want it. It's understandable. It's relatable. Jey had something. It's gone. Now he wants something else that's as or more valuable. So, yeah. Is there a chance that Jey has an edge to him but doesn't turn full-fledged heel?
There is a chance, because obviously over the last year, WWE's been teasing a bunch of things that ended up never happening and they've never delivered on. I've been waiting for Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio to break up like since December of last year, and it still hasn't happened yet. So yeah, it's possible they could just, be adding more of an edge to him, but he doesn't fully turn. But just from what I'm seeing so far, it would be a huge mistake if they don't turn him heel, because they've just given us so many hints, so many signs. If they don't deliver on it, then what the hell was all this for really anyway? And yeah, like from Jey Uso turning heel now, it reminds me of when Macho Man turned heel during the feud with Hogan, and also when CM Punk turned heel during his title reign, where you're taking somebody who's like really popular, who the fans are really into, and then just suddenly out of nowhere, you turn them heel. And in those cases, I believe it worked. And I think in this case, I think it can also work too. Even though they're really popular, even though Jey Uso, in this case is really popular, turning him heel and giving him an interesting story to tell, hey, I can't be against that.
What do you, shifting gears here, what do you think, well, not just expanding on this kind of saga, LA Knight, and how he's portraying himself, how they're portraying him? Is he a tool and a conduit to tell other people's story, or is his story nearly or equal to what the story they're telling with Jey in particular? Yeah, how do you, yeah, I mean, are they taking care of him, or are they using him to get help someone else?
I think he's doing pretty well in his role. I think he's like really in a sweet spot right now. I have to say, in all honesty, I think this might be the best run he's had in WWE the entire time he's been there. He had a main event match in Clash in Paris. He's in main event segments every week, even if it's involving other people who are already like stars that are like bigger than him in a sense. He's still in those segments every week. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you're an LA Knight fan, whether he has a championship or not, I don't see any reason to be complaining, and I don't see any reason to not be happy right now because yeah, this dude is in a very, very good spot right now. He's in a feud, one of the top stars in the company, that being Jey Uso. He's in main event segments, main event matches every single week, and has been for the last 2 months or so. So yeah, I feel like there's not really much to worry about with him right now. As long as he stays in the position he's in right now, then it's all good.
I talk about main event positioning and framing mattering. I wrote that last week about, all the hype for Cena Lesnar compared to and Cody kind of being ignored or being portrayed as secondary, well, largely ignored in a lot of places. I think they did a good job tonight when Rhea Ripley and Asuka was booked, framing it as a main event. It's our main event tonight. It's an unexpected main event. Wade Barrett saying it's a WrestleMania, I think he said WrestleMania main event caliber match. They really, this is what I mean. It's about the narrative. You can't force fans to cheer someone they don't like. We learned that with Cena and Reigns. You can't force fans to boo somebody who they don't want to boo. I mean, fans are not just putty in the hands and they just take whatever shape and go whatever direction they're told to go in. But they're not immune to the power of suggestion and how they're framed. No question about it. And the way that they talked about Asuka and Rhea made those two seem like big stars, Kurt. I mean, when that match was announced, the announcers got excited. They talked it up. It got the main event spot. I do believe the symbolism of the main event being reserved for big stars. Not necessarily always top guys. You got to save your PLE matches and that kind of thing. But the main event should be framed consistently as a prestigious place to be. Kind of like when you're the NFL Sunday Night Football game. Or when it's the last award at the Emmys or the Oscars. The first and last awards are bigger than the one in the middle when it's about a production guy who no one's heard of. You want to have slots that just by being in it, it can help elevate you. And you need to put people in those spots who reach a certain threshold of being over. But you can elevate people like Rhea and Asuka by framing them as this is a huge main event match. You should all stick around for it. I can't believe we're getting this for free. Obviously, Rhea Ripley has been pushed more often than not as that type of star. I think they could do a more consistent job with that. Going back even to the Netflix special where I don't think she was a big enough deal. But Asuka's really good, and she's a legacy star in that division who's had a lot of wins. So I like the framing of that, and it goes to my point. They know they have the power to create a perception that these wrestlers are people worth sticking around to watch, and it's a big deal when they're in that main event spot. Talk about what you thought of the build, and also talk about the match itself. They had about 18 minutes, I think, to tell their story, and then we had a quick roll up after Asuka went after Rhea on the ring apron, but Rhea moved and she knocked Kairi off the ring apron, and that led to a quick win for Rhea. So a bit of a tainted finish in a way with Asuka just because she was her attempt to take advantage of a distracted Rhea backfired. But then we had the angle afterwards too, where Asuka and Kairi is doing whatever Asuka tells her to, and she pretended to be friends with Io and then wasn't. Speaking of Asuka, so a lot of things happened there. Kurt, hit those points. Give me your opinions.
I thought it was a great main event, one of the better main events I've seen on Raw in a long time, because it's been getting really repetitive in these main event slots with the whole Vision stuff. Breaker and Bronson Reed against Jey Uso and LA Knight, or against Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, or against Jimmy Uso and LA Knight. The whole different combinations of those matches for the last few weeks have been kind of draining and kind of making the show a little boring. But this week, they finally gave us something different, and with the women, no less. And yeah, this is an incredible match between these two. They've been really building and teasing the tension between the two of them for the last month or so, and it really finally kind of came to a head tonight in that main event match. And yeah, both of these women killed it. Giving them this main event spot was definitely the right move. They definitely delivered and held their end of it. And I love the way it finished, where even though Rhea won, Asuka kind of got her revenge, which sprayed the mist in her face afterwards, and then she forced Kairi Sane to help her attack her also. Then Io comes out. Io kind of tries to be the peacemaker, and then Asuka, we've been calling it for weeks, She finally turned on Io too. So when they announced that this match was going to be the main event tonight, I knew something like that was going to happen, where there was going to be some kind of turn or swerve or something, and they delivered on that part too. So now Asuka's officially a heel. I guess you could say Kairi Sane is a reluctant heel with her. And yeah, you couldn't have asked for a better ending to the show tonight than the one we got. And this is looking like more than likely we're getting a tag match with both teams at Crown Jewel, which I'm all here for, because with the talent of all those 4 women, especially in a place like Australia, that is a recipe for success.
Do you think that it makes the angle with Asuka and Io and Kairi and Rhea feel more important because it closed out Raw?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's been building for so long, and now with it, like turning the corner tonight the way it did in the main event angle, yeah, it definitely feels like an even bigger deal now.
And I'm not saying it's true, but if they believed that more people would care about, let's say, LA Knight and Jey Uso, that doesn't mean it should be the main event just because more people care about it. Like, sometimes you use the main event spot as a tool because the angle afterwards you want to flag as a big deal. And that I agree. I mean, I asked it as a question, but I had a strong opinion on it, and I'm with you. I think it feels like a bigger deal because it is the closing scene on Raw on Netflix, that they didn't put it in the middle of the show. It's also nice to shake it up too, because there's been so many main event matches lately. As Derek Mitchell said, it's been a while since we've seen anything other than the Vision, Punk, LA Knight, and Jey Uso in a main event. It's cool to see Rhea and Asuka in the main event. WWE should be looking for opportunities to shake that up a little bit, so it doesn't just feel like, slight alteration, but essentially rerun season with the same people in there. Durrell says it was good to have Rhea and Asuka in the main event, and then having the turning angle was good as well. Now you've got the women's superpowers uniting finally for the PLE back in Rhea's home. It's big. Yep, agree with that. Derek Mitchell says, I wasn't a fan of the poison mist spot. It doesn't seem to affect Asuka spewing the mist. So are we to believe Asuka has an antidote, or does the mist just sting skin and eyes, but the way she blows it out of her mouth, it doesn't affect her because saliva protects her from it? I mean, I don't think we're supposed to think all that hard about it. It seems like mostly it's the effect on the eyes that hurts. That would be my sort of kayfabe storyline, pushback to Derek's concern. What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably the latter part where, like, even if she doesn't spit it out as aggressively, it still stings when it hits you. And Rhea definitely sold it that way tonight with how she went down afterwards. Yeah, I've been loving this new Asuka heel persona she's been putting on for the last few weeks, and it really peaked in that main event segment tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing where she goes with this heel character, and just another prime example of how the women stuff and the women's matches and feuds have really carried the show pretty much this whole year.
David Chase says, going back to the last topic, I'm not so sure they turn Jey heel. I've been to 3 live shows this year, and Jey cleans it up when it comes to merchandise. Same category as Cody. I say this semi-regularly, but I want to underline it again, and I want to know if you agree with me, Kurt. WWE should not book based on merch sales unless it's so off the charts. Fans go to shows to see wrestlers they care about, and they come with a budget for merchandise, and they're going to buy merchandise of whoever the favorite star is on that show or who their favorite star at the time is. I don't think you let merch sales, again, unless it's just an outlier off the chart. But if someone's just getting normal top babyface, co-top babyface merch sales, don't go, well, that should change our booking. Have faith that if you turn Jey heel, the next person who takes his spot as a co-top babyface will also sell merchandise. And by the way, historically, that's true. So don't let merch sale, because people who I think are smart bring this up sometimes. Well, they can't turn them because people are still buying their T-shirts. I'm like, that's the tail wagging the dog. Like, you just book the best storylines you can, and do everything that makes the most sense, and the merch will take care of itself. Kurt?
Yeah, I can see it that way. Yeah, sometimes when you put too much emphasis on those parts of the story as opposed to the actual good story you can tell, you miss out on a good opportunity. I kind of feel like they missed out on that opportunity with John Cena over a decade ago when they could have turned him heel before, because he was selling too much merchandise. The little kids like him too much. I mean, I get it business wise, but yeah, they really missed out big time not turning him back then. So yeah, I feel like the way you just described it, I think it makes a lot more sense than how Ronda Rousey described it recently, where she said it was ridiculous for her to work with Alexa Bliss because Alexa Bliss had high merchandise sales, and yeah, just the way that whole thing came off. So yeah, this aspect of it, yeah, I get it. It just makes more sense to just go with whatever story's working the best, even if maybe you have to make that little sacrifice. It'll more than make up it'll more than make up for it with whatever story you tell and whatever angle comes out of it.
Let merchandise be the side effect of telling the best stories and doing the right thing with the wrestlers you have. And it almost should be like a blind trust. We know we're going to sell merchandise if we're doing a good job booking. Let's do the best job we can booking, and go from there. Okay, some smaller things on the show, but things I want to bring up to you and get your thoughts on. What do you think of what they're doing with Rusev and the IT title situation? We had that scene at the beginning where LA Knight is shown coming into the building. In the background, Rusev is berating or trying to intimidate Dom. Dom manipulates the situation to get JD a match against Rusev. JD got some offense against Rusev. Did he get too much? Did the match go too long? Should Rusev have destroyed him like Lesnar destroyed Cena? And what do you think of the storyline with Judgment Day and the role Rusev is playing, Kurt?
It's a little different. It's kind of a weird concept with, like, it being a heel versus heel. So it's going to take a little getting used to in that sense. But yeah, Rusev just came off like a killer like he always does, and JD was the perfect punching bag for him. Even though he put up a fight throughout the match, the outcome was inevitable. But I did like the ending where how Rusev had JD in the accolade. Dominic kind of like hesitated to help him. He kind of like stood to the side like circa Triple H and Batista 2005. And yeah, just Finn Balor coming out to have to make the save on JD's behalf, and then him getting mad at Dominic. That's going to further like plant a seed for their eventual split. As long as we've been damn waiting for it, but I think it definitely happens now within the next few months or so. So Rusev and Dominic, I think it'll make for a fun match, but it is going to be a weird dynamic with it both being heels. So it's going to kind of going to take time for me to really say whether or not I'm sold on this. But I mean, it's something different so far. I kind of was hoping AJ would be the one to dethrone Dominic, but I guess that's not happening just yet. So we'll see where this goes with this whole Rusev thing.
Do you think fans will cheer Dom or Rusev?
Rusev.
Yeah. Ryan Solorio says, I consider Dom more face than heel at this point. I mean, his character is so heelish in every way, but people love him. They're entertained by him. I think it's WWE's job to tell a story with him that makes you boo him, but you boo him because it's the respectful thing to do for someone you're entertained by. Like, I don't get fans who cheer a heel who's trying to get booed and think they're doing that heel a favor. Boo him. That's what he wants you to do. That's what she wants you to do. Boo the heel. If you like him, boo him louder. That's how you show support for that wrestler. And I think fans are doing that, Kurt. I think they're booing Dom, but with respect for. It's not like go away heat. It's not we really hate you, and if I saw you, I'd spit on you. I think it's just like you are such an entertaining heel, and it is so fun to boo you. But I don't know what that does for Rusev to be put in that situation. I mean, that it's Levesque likes to kind of blur the lines a bit. I think it can lead to ambiguity. I think it can lead to fans kind of suppressing their expression of their emotions in a way that sort of takes some of what is the most fun of pro wrestling away, which is just having somebody you unabashedly want to cheer for and someone you want to boo. But I want to see it play out first because maybe there is more of an end game here. It almost feels like they had nothing else for Rusev, and he's someone that Finn and JD and Dom can kind of play off each other, having to get beat up by.
I was saying this in my reviews for Raw the last few weeks, and they gave us the match a few weeks ago, surprisingly. Put Rusev in a feud with Penta. That'd be a fun feud, like if they actually dragged it out for a while, because this whole Penta against New Day and Grayson Waller thing, even though the match they gave us tonight was fun and everything with the War Raiders and all that, this thing has been dragging to death. Like, how long are they going to keep this thing going? It's been like every week a different combination of Penta versus Waller, Penta versus Xavier, Penta versus Kofi, then Penta and two partners against the three of them. Yeah, like how much longer are they going to drag this thing out? It's time for the dude to move on to something else. I mean, it's great that Penta gets the wins more often than not, but I have to be honest, this whole thing has been really dragging him down like the last month and a half or so. So I feel like a feud with Penta and Rusev would have been perfect. It would have been a benefit for both of them, but it doesn't look like they're doing that right now.
Speaking of the previous topic here, Derek Mitchell says, I think the Judgment Day needs to drop the titles to the Vision and Bronson to complete the circle. The Judgment Day just don't bring any gravitas to the titles. That's true. I mean, I don't think gravitas needs to be 100% of I don't think gravitas needs to be a requirement to be part of a storyline with titles, but I think more often than not, you should have some. Are they too much of a joke, Kurt, to be credible tag champs? Are they hurting the titles?
No, just the way WWE treats them is hurting the titles. Because we had the same problem when the New Day were champions. We had the same problem when the War Raiders were champions. And we had the same problem when JD and Finn were the champions last time. For whatever reason, they just do not take those titles seriously. Those titles get defended, like once every 2 months, give or take. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you can't blame it on JD and Finn. It's just no matter who they put those belts on, it just clear that it's not a priority to WWE. And it shows with, how little those titles get defended. I think with Breakker and Reed, it would be, featured in more main event segments, which would be great. But if they, just not defend the titles at all, if they don't have any title matches or major great title matches at that, then yeah, the titles are just going to be in the same place no matter who has them.
Darrell Freeman says, is Rusev becoming a tool to turn the rest of Judgment Day faces, or is he becoming a face? I don't think it's either. I think Rusev, when this feud is done, will be Rusev, and I think he's a sort of a pawn or a agitator or a tool to help tell a story of dissension within the Judgment Day. I don't think they're going to turn him, but I don't think they intend for him to be booed universally either. I think they just see him as sort of an outlier who's a helpful, not a bit player, but it's not about him. They're just using him to tell a Judgment Day story right now. It might be about him next. Kurt.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I don't think Judgment Day needs to turn heel. I think they're fine with where they are right now. And Rusev, he could turn face, but I don't think now is the right time. Now It's not the right circumstances. I think he's fine being a monster killer heel. So I feel like they should stick with that with him for now, unless something great happens with Rusev there. There's a good comedy angle he could be a part of. I think he just needs to stay where he's at now as far as his character.
Yeah. Some opinions on who will get cheered. Ryan Solarigo said, I consider Dom more face than heel at this moment. I don't think that's a story they're telling right now, right, Kurt? I mean, you can like him, but the story they're telling with Dom is he's the Weasley guy. But it doesn't mean ultimately he won't end up being the babyface. But right now, he's the guy who's, sneaking behind JD's back, manipulating him into agreeing to a match that he already worked out happening. I don't know. I think the face turn comes with a reconciliation with his dad.
Yeah, that's not going to be for a long time because, even though the crowd cheers for Dominic, I was there at SummerSlam when they did cheer for him. Yeah, and he does have a part of the crowd that's behind him. It's probably mainly more for his luck with women than anything else. But, yeah, just him as a character and the way he acts, this guy is a heel. He has heel written all over him. He just doesn't show any signs of turning babyface. So, with that being said, he's still a heel as far as I'm concerned.
Sadler says Dom will surely get cheered over Rusev. Derek says, I think the fans would like to see Dom get beat up, but not sure Rusev would get cheered more than Dom. Darrell says WWE's trying to fight against the fans who are trying to turn Dom face, but I think Dom can be anything they would want him to be because he's on the verge of being a top star, maybe a top 3 star. Kurt, how big is Dom on the verge of being? He's, I think, 29. He's not a kid. This is when people enter their prime drawing years.
Yeah, I feel like he could be a star in that, mix along with, Braun Breaker. I feel like he could be one of those future main top guys of the company. Yeah, he's just shown in the last 3 years, ever since he turned on his dad, that, he could definitely be a player and he could definitely be a major part of the show. And for the trajectory that he's on right now, the reactions he gets, and just the way he's held down the whole Judgment Day group, I would say ever since they kicked out Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, this dude is definitely showing that he could be one of those major stars. I don't know when he'll end up being WWE champion or the main guy to that degree, but he will definitely be in that mix within the next 5 years or so. He's too talented not to be.
Ryan Solorio says, I think we're going to get a hair versus mask match with Ray before they reconcile. Derek Mitchell adds, Rusev is a conduit. That's a word I was looking for. But don't see him or the Judgment Day turning face. I think we still have to wait to see what happens with Liv Morgan and Roxanne before we see what direction Dom goes. And, I do think we're going to stall until that moment. A lot of storylines are drawn out because you're waiting for someone else to finish up their feud or you're waiting for someone to come back from injury. And so we're just kind of filling time until we can pull, move to that kind of final climax of a story. And I think Liv and Roxanne is something they continue to, drop hints about on a, 2 out of 3 weeks or something where it looks like, ooh, what's Liv thinking about this?
Yeah, that's a match for WrestleMania I see happening. Liv Morgan against Roxanne or possibly Liv against Raquel, some kind of combination of that. I definitely see Liv coming back as a babyface when she gets back and potentially being the Royal Rumble winner.
You mentioned Penta and New Day. We had a 6-man match, New Day and Grayson Waller against Penta and the Viking Raiders. Went 10 minutes, Penta and the Raiders win. That bump Waller took on the Mexican Destroyer off the top rope was crazy. Ooh. I mean, I think there was legit concern for him, and the way he sold made it look like something bad happened, but he seemed fine. So that's good. Any thoughts on that match itself?
The match was fun. I've been getting sick to death of this whole feud and this whole storyline because it's been damn repetitive, like the Vision stuff. But I can't complain about a good wrestling match, a good no-holds-barred match like the one we got in this part of the show. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought everybody did their thing. The action was great, and a great finish on top of that. Even if I don't like a storyline, even if I think a storyline is played out like this one's been, if the wrestling's good, I'll still enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah. Couple other comments just going back to Cody I want to include, and then I want to throw to you, Kurt, for any additional thoughts we didn't get to. Otherwise, we'll wrap up. Sadler version 3 says, Cody and Seth acknowledging their history makes the feud so much better. If Vince were still around, he'd stupidly make them act like Seth and Cody have never wrestled before. Pupil Parson says, I find it hard to cheer for Cody when his only mission seems to be declaring himself as the greatest thing ever. He's not fighting for the fans. He's fighting to call himself the quarterback. What do you think about that framing of Cody's promos, Kurt?
I think Pupil probably is not a fan of Cody, and some of those feelings are coming out as very personal. But yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I feel like Cody's definitely been a people's champion ever since he came back. Just the stuff he does for little kids, people's reactions when he comes out, and just his connection with the audience as a whole. You can't not call him a people's champion or like a man of the people. I don't think that's accurate at all.
Yeah. Darrell says the best Cody has felt as a babyface in a while was tonight, and what he said hit more too. I like everything Cody said, and he made a line between him and Seth. He made both of them feel like the top two guys, and that was one of my thoughts coming out of that. Mark Boschetti says Seth and Cody have Flair Steamboat type chemistry. And Sadler version 3 says Seth has been better lately without the goofy dancing and posing. I like him being serious. Yeah, absolutely. Derek Mitchell says this is the first night since Crown Jewel Cody has worn his huge Crown Jewel ring. I thought it was pretty sly. Like, okay, we talked about it, we mentioned it, but we're not going to dwell on it. It's a reason for the match. It's the prize. I got 9 extra digits. I'm glad that Cody didn't parade around acting like it was a big deal for the whole year, though.
Yeah, those belts are probably just one more piece of luggage he probably doesn't want to carry anyway. So I don't mind him not wearing it every day.
Yeah. Derek Hubbard says the most underrated aspect of Cody is that he is a traditional babyface who does not undermine heels by using semi-heel tactics. And he doesn't big dog and overwhelm rising babyfaces. He's best for business. I think there was a little dig at John Cena in there too, and maybe Earn. But Ryan Solorio says, in contrast to me saying, hey, Cody's a guy who made this all these solid crowds happen. He goes, everybody I knew went to Elimination Chamber to see Cena. My buddy paid around $1,500 to sit front row when Cena was advertised in the Elimination Chamber. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that people aren't interested in seeing Cena on his final run. Of course they are. But, I mean, the attendance, and there'll be, I'm sure WrestleTix and WrestleNomics will do like a really good, chart and kind of not postmortem, but, an overview of all this. But, anecdotally, I mean, Netflix numbers aren't great. They're kind of on the low end of what you would expect. Had you been blind to what WWE was doing, you would never think, oh my God, Cena's having his final run with the numbers Netflix is releasing. He has not brought like a ton of people to the show. The numbers are disappointing attendance wise, and we note it at the top of our TV reports often. We're like, the last time they're in this building, they drew 2,000 more people. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying Cena's dragging the product down. I'm just saying he's not a big enough difference maker to disregard the guy who's your top star, who was drawing perfectly well, if not better, before Rock and Cena showed up and bogarted him, bigfooted him, acted like they were bigger deals, and the machinery got behind it and kind of bought into it in a way that I think is counterproductive. And I think Derek points out one of the cool things about him. Al Archer said, Cody's a fantastic babyface, but we're in a heel-loving world. If this was the 1980s, he would be a much bigger deal. Al, I just think you're not paying attention to what happened the last 5 years, actually, in wrestling. I mean, we're not in the heel-loving world. I want to get Kurt's thoughts on this, too, but fans have been cheering and adoring Cody, Jay, Sami Zayn. I mean, these stories that they're telling are of babyfaces who fans love. We're not in a heel-loving world. That was the 90s. That was the 2000s. That was the 2010s to a degree. Yeah. That's not where we are now. Like, I just think that's a holdover that to me feels out of touch with a preponderance of evidence the past 5 years. What do you think, Kurt?
Hey, even John Cena gets cheered a lot more than he did over a decade ago.
Yep. And when he turned heel, they weren't cheering him because they're cheering heel. They're cheering him because they're like, we think your heel turn is dumb and we don't buy it.
Well, it got a great reaction the night it happened, but just everything that happened afterwards was a huge letdown. But we'll try to forget that ever happened. As far as like being a heel friendly company, or like always wanted to cheer the heels, it's just not that same vibe anymore. Like even when I go to shows, it's just not that same vibe anymore. Even Roman Reigns during his 4-year run as champion, even if you did like him, even if you were a fan of him, the crowd reaction was mostly still negative for him, and it was mostly still boos for him. Even if he was a cool champion or whatever you want to call him as, he still got those heel reactions regardless. So it's just not that same kind of vibe anymore. It's just really not. If Cody were around in the Attitude Era, okay, fine, he probably would have gotten booed during that time. But 2025, there's all love for Cody.
And I'm not convinced Cody got booed in the Attitude Era, in part because if you like ECW, Tommy Dreamer was adored and cheered, and Tommy was his like just white meat baby face. I mean, as it got, he was portrayed as a badass and all that. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, they like people, wrestling fans like who they like. And I think Cody, because of the connection to Dusty, there's an earnestness and a sincerity where it seems like he'd be watching wrestling if he weren't a wrestling star. I think fans bond with people like that who don't look like they're just in it for stardom or the money, or because someone said they saw him at a gym and said, hey, you should be a wrestler. Which it was a story with Lex Luger. It was a story with Hulk Hogan. Like, I mean, Hogan was a fan. But, Lex Luger wasn't. People can see through that stuff. More comments from Al Archer on this. They bought those overpriced tickets sight unseen to experience wrestling and see John Cena in person. WWE's trying to grow a new fan base. Not sure it'll work, but it's their focus. So I find that contradictory in the sentence. They're trying to grow a new fan base by getting one last ticket purchase from fans to see John Cena who adore him because they watched wrestling in the past. Like, John Cena's not bringing in new wrestling fans. I mean, that's too blanket of a statement, but like, he's not like the strategy to create new wrestling fans is to have a current star in their prime be who people are paying to see. And I think that's Rhea Ripley. I think that's Cody Rhodes. I think that's like, you make new fans by making young people who start to like WWE feel that they're watching a product today that's a bigger deal than anything that happened in the past. And it doesn't mean there won't be a special guest from the past, but the way you grow your fan base and get new fans is by telling fans the current product is not inferior to the past. In fact, you're lucky you're watching now, and you have to be careful not to do that. Kurt?
Yeah, that's how I felt when I first started watching in '94 when Brett was the top guy.
Yep.
I mean, I knew the Hogan era had like passed previously, and it was fun in its own way, and I did enjoy Hogan and like those people when I would rip the videos in the weekend. But I didn't feel like I was like a part of something special, and I felt like I was a part of a special era with Brett being the main guy, and also people like Razor, Diesel, Shawn, Undertaker. Yeah, I definitely felt that connection to them, and I definitely felt like Brett was the guy, even if Hogan was more popular during his time. I didn't make me look at Brett any less. Yep,
I think so many fans have that anecdote where they're like, "Yeah, these are big stars, but the star I liked is the guy who is having his peak years in real time with my fandom." But you can do damage to that if you treat them as secondary and not as the ultimate top star at that moment. Al Archer adds, you got one chance to add a set of eyes for non-fans. I'm not sure. Lesnar draws interest. Cena does too. Cody isn't that guy. He's awesome, but let's not lose sight of that fact either. One of the metrics that Lesnar draws interest. I mean, okay, social media. Oh, there's 1 billion views. Okay. So Netflix numbers are way up? No. Attendance is way up? No. I'm not saying don't utilize Lesnar in a vacuum. Like, you want big stars who have his charisma and history. But let's not talk about him like he is this documented, historically significant needle mover. He just hasn't been. He's been featured and people talk about him. And when something goes viral with him and Cena or Rock or whatever, of course, the casual fans who peripherally occasionally pay attention to wrestling are going to stop and watch that. But show me the numbers. Show me the revenue change. Show me how that translates. I think people get enamored with the sugar rush of this ephemeral moment of, oh my God, did you see our social media views? Because it's the metric that gives them that immediate feedback. It's why we check our phones. We want that dopamine ping. But if you're a wrestling promoter, you got to look big picture and go, is this really making a difference, or are we crowding out the things that are making a difference in order to get the dopamine rush, that little ping from, oh my God, the social media numbers Lesnar and Cena did? Those are people who aren't actually showing up. They're not paying money. They just go, oh, this is a curiosity off to the side. I'll watch it. Those aren't actual fans and who are going to be there week in and week out. I think you lean on those. Kurt.
Yeah, I remember at SummerSlam when Brock came back. It was a great moment at all. It went viral. Everybody went crazy for it. But that horrible build we got for that match going into WrestlePalooza and the way that match turned out itself, and hindsight being 2020, I could have done without that. I don't care if it was a big moment that went viral and everybody lost their mind over it. Considering all the crap that we got from it ever since, I could have done without it. It could have never happened, and I would have been okay with it.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm not against Lesnar and Cena being featured. I just don't want it to crowd out things that I'm arguing are more important, even if they're less sexy, less known by top executives who are not the ticket buying public and watching start to finish every week like people listening to us are. Don't get caught up in that. Don't get caught up in believing that the corporate executives who tune in for 10 minutes here and there or hear from their kids or their niece who their favorite wrestler is, but they're not watching week in and week out. They're not the target market, or the ESPN executives who are giddy over the association with WWE, but aren't actually watching every week in and week out, year after year. Don't get lost in what they're talking about. You as a weekly viewer, what are you into? And remember back to how you felt about WWE before The Rock showed up and meddled, before John Cena came in and just, was a wrecking ball to everything around him in order to be the centerpiece. And remind yourself of that. Don't value what the corporate media and the top executives at WWE are pushing just because they're not the weekly viewers who know that young Cadet was into Bret Hart. There are a bunch of capable executives who didn't know who Bret was, and they thought, oh, we need to get Hulk Hogan or Randy Savage or Roddy Piper because that's who they remembered. But those people shouldn't be in charge. And there's people who are in charge. They should know better. And again, you can have special attractions, just don't have them crowd out those who are the actual current day draws. For sure. Kurt, anything else? Oh, you know what? I'll throw this in and then I'll throw you. Derek Hubbard brought this up. It's frustrating that fans complain about nothing major happening in the main event with Cody and Drew. At the same time, fans complain about the abundance of overbooked finishes and unnecessary surprises. But the thing is I'm sympathetic to fans feeling that way. All of us sort of are like, that's it? That's up to Paul Levesque and WWE to recondition fans to believe that a Cody retaining his title against the top contender is a satisfying, newsworthy finish. It might not go viral. It might not create buzz for non-fans or the ultra-casual fans who peripherally keep their eye on it. Ignore those metrics and tell a good story and make fans believe, the ones who are actually sitting down for 3 hours plus watching these PLEs, consistently, earnestly tell the story that we're here to see Cody defend the title, and he did, and that should be worthy of a celebration because that's how sports works. You don't watch your home team against your top rival and see them win and then go, oh, shoot, there wasn't a controversy. There's not something that people who didn't watch the game are going to be talking about tomorrow who don't matter at all. You're the fan, you're satisfied your team won, and you're happy. That's why you watched. And that should be the central thesis of wrestling bookers. Don't get lost in all these distractions and all these non-fans telling you what numbers they're looking for in the morning. Stay steady at the wheel.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to the Hulk Hogan philosophy with Vince McMahon that Hogan must pose, and that's why all of the shows ended with Hogan winning and doing the ear thing at the end. I get it. I understand it's a way to send the people home happy, and yeah, it's kind of like what you get, used to in a sense. So I guess now they're doing that more with Cody Rhodes, and I guess that makes sense. It would have been nice if they did some kind of crazy swerve at the end, considering that, that match only had a week build. So I thought they would have maybe done something along those lines, but didn't happen in that case. Was what it was, but all we can do is move on to the next PLE.
Well, and I would say it's over the next 3 years, WWE should frame it as the biggest deal coming out of the shows. Cody retained his title against a top contender like Drew. Had Drew won, it would have changed the course of WWE. It would have been a huge deal. But Cody retained, and so we're still on track with Cody as our centerpiece champion. That's a story the great bookers historically have told. And when there wasn't social media, when there weren't distractions, and the good bookers knew that's what drew, and I think that's timeless. And I think anyone feeling let down that there wasn't something more, a swerve or a surprise, are it's kind of the dopamine rush, cell phone, social media culture of likes and hearts. I need that ping, otherwise I don't feel like my time was well spent tonight. And I just it's up to WWE to fight that and not give into it. Because I just point to the NFL. My Vikings won by the widest margin they've ever won by. I wasn't sitting around going, well, yeah, but nobody broke their leg, or nobody got stretchered off, or nobody ran on the field, or there wasn't a player who mooned the crowd and is going to get suspended. Like, I just love that my team won. Like, that's enough for me, because the NFL tells a story with a record book, and wins and losses matter, and that's how. And the Super Bowl is the be all end all. And beating a rival is what everybody celebrates for the next 7 days. So pro wrestling, just get back to that, and people will buy in. Don't give up on it needlessly and get distracted by all these ephemeral dopamine rush, sugar rush nonsense of social media and corporate media. I'm not saying don't go for viral moments, but just realize that's just stuff on the side. What counts most is Cody Rhodes, your current top champion, retained his title against a very credible threat. And he did so in that very credible threat, lost his composure, and got focused on something else. And now he paid the price. And you should delight in the fact that Drew couldn't stay focused and wanted to hurt Cody instead of win a title, and that Cody took advantage of it and is still champion. That's the story this week, not the lack of something that went viral. I'll keep sounding off on that, because I truly believe everything gets harder when everything is about just feeding people some dopamine rush that's ephemeral and goes away quickly, but it makes them feel like their night was worth it. Cody retaining the title was the story of that show, and he did, and people should be happy with it and not expect something different.
Yeah, but apparently a lot of people expected something different from WrestlePalooza because of all the reviews it got. Even ESPN kind of gave it like a mediocre review. They rated it a C, I believe.
Yeah.
Because they talked about how they were going to give us all these crazy surprises, all these crazy spectacle aspects of it. And yeah, like in many ways, it kind of felt like another Saturday night's main event, only a little bit better, but still kind of Saturday night's main event vibes.
I think if people at ESPN are reviewing it as a mediocre show, and by the way, it was a mediocre PLE. I mean, I'm not disputing that, but it wasn't a mediocre PLE because people expected a bunch of hot shot booking and sugar rush stunts. Like, I don't respect that level of booking, and I don't respect that discourse of critique of a show. A show is successful if your babyface champion conducts himself in a way that brings prestige to the title, and he wrestled with honor, and he beat a heel who lost his composure. That's the story. That's good, solid booking. Did AJ and Punk get a little self-indulgent, a little long, and a little goofy? Yeah. It didn't feel like they were skipping around and doing these double team spots that were super choreographed. It felt like they got too cute.
I love that match personally. I love that match.
Yeah, well, it was fun. I thought it went too long, and I thought they got too cute. But the crowd. But in my review, read my review on the site. I said that the crowd was with it the whole way. But I also think, given the nature of the feud, they went for funny, haha, cute stuff that didn't feel like they were really fighting. It felt like they were there to dazzle you with clever, choreographed double team spots. Again, it got to pop out of the crowd. So I'm acknowledging that, and I didn't trash on the match, but it didn't feel serious to me. And to me, I think the build felt more serious than the execution of the match, which was more about, let's do this cute thing that'll have people slapping their knees at home going, oh my God, I can't believe they just did that. and that's like, okay, every once in a while, but it's not necessarily for everybody. But you had the really good women's title match. And obviously, Lesnar just destroying Cena. For people who are tuning in to kind of see Cena's story and want to see him stand up to Lesnar, that match was not there to make people happy. And I think wrestling fans sometimes mistake, and of course, Cena's a culprit in this, that WWE's job is to entertain you and make you happy. And that's not their job. Their job is to tell a story that keeps you tuning in week after week and month after month. And sometimes a match is there not to give you maximum entertainment, but to be a chapter in a story that leads to something that they believe is even more important. Lesnar destroying Cena, given Cena's clout, it wasn't like a burial. That is part of a larger story arc with Lesnar that's probably going to lead to Braun Breaker beating Lesnar, and they need Lesnar to destroy Cena, one, to create sympathy for Cena and fans applaud as he walks on his own feet to the back. And then, we'll see what story he tells next in the lead up to his final match. But that's to put Lesnar over as a not a has-been, but a guy who is more dangerous than ever and on a rampage, who can stop him. And Cena was a chapter in that story. And that was an example of Cena giving back in a way that he did not when it came to his follow-up to losing to Cody.
Yeah, fair enough. Still didn't like the match though, but I see what you mean by it.
I think they knew going in, a lot of people, reviewers, would be like, I didn't like that match. But I think people are under the mistaken impression that WWE's goal is to make you happy all the time and entertain you with the best match possible. And WWE's job is to tell stories that hook you. And sometimes there's a chapter that is not maximum entertaining or competitive because it's an essential part of where they're going. And, sometimes you got to wait and see. It doesn't mean they always make the right choice or that they don't overindulge in, telling a story at the expense of satisfying the audience. But you shouldn't judge whether a show contained the right type of finishes and action based on, did they give me the best show possible based on who was on the card? Like, shows should build. Every match should have a different purpose. Some matches are there to do a payoff. Other matches are there to build a wrestler up at the expense of someone else for something bigger later. I think for a 5-match show full of commercials that goes 3+ hours, that's part of the problem. I mean, I think part of the issue is let's get 7 matches on these shows and cut back on the filler. And I think then people would react less negatively to, as you are, Kurt, to Cena Lesnar or whatever. Like if you give them a couple more matches and some clean finishes and a little more athleticism and a little less self-promotion, I think people would be more forgiving also.
Yeah, especially considering you were charging $30 for people to watch that damn show on Saturday too.
Did you have trouble getting access to it?
Funny enough, I signed up for this service called Fubo TV where they were doing like a 5-day free trial. So I just signed up for that and used that to log in, and I was able to watch that way.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of people have stories about the complexity of it. Yeah. It was an adventure. My final question for you, and then I'll wrap up, or if you want to bring something else up, you can. What do you think about the ESPN WWE connection? I can't remember how big of a sports fan you are outside of WWE, but WWE is very excited to be associated with ESPN. Certain half of ESPN is very excited, and the other half is embarrassed to be associated with WWE. And they are talking a lot about it. I have been pretty consistently mocking WWE for sounding like they're the boy who can't believe the girl said yes to go to the dance. It's like, let's act like you belong here, and that ESPN is lucky to have you as opposed to you're lucky to be there with them. I also understand you want to tout this. It's an expensive and important partnership. But in the end, Kurt, my argument has been wrestling fans are going to find, they might begrudge, but they're going to find the product wherever it is, whether it's on Peacock or ESPN. And at the end of the day, the logo in the corner doesn't matter to them. They just want to see their wrestlers wrestle. And I think WWE gets a little confused about people being enamored with their business deals instead of just telling stories with their wrestlers and finding a platform that is affordable and easy to access. And I don't think fans are feeling that way about ESPN right now, that it's affordable or easy to access relative to Peacock or, frankly, WWE Network.
And in all honesty, a lot of people are even turned off by ESPN. Me, myself, as somebody who watches the NBA regularly, I haven't been really into ESPN for the last few years, ever since they started like firing and letting go of like some of my favorite personalities like Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, Jalen Rose, even Molly Karam just stepped down recently. So yeah, a lot of my favorite people from ESPN have kind of been gone recently, and just the whole coverage and presentation of the NBA finals, for that matter, is like felt less special in recent years too. So like now, in all honesty, with this WWE deal with ESPN, yeah, WWE should be like acting differently in the sense that ESPN is luckier to have them than they're lucky to have ESPN, because yeah, WWE in many ways is more relevant than ESPN's been in recent years with how they've kind of fallen off in many ways. I mean, the partnership I don't have an issue with. It's cool. It's fine. I don't like the fact that I have to like go from one streaming service to another now to watch certain shows. I feel like that's going to be a bit of a headache, but I mean, it is what it is. What are you going to do about it? And it's funny, didn't they have a relationship with ESPN about like 10 years ago? They would like do different like shows with them, or like, Jonathan Coachman covered WWE or things along those lines.
Right. Yeah. It's not like they never acknowledged them till today or this last month.
Yeah, it kind of feels like, they've kind of done this thing before, but like now it feels like it's a bigger deal. They're actually doing actual shows on ESPN, like their major shows. So that aspect of it is different. So, I mean, it does get the more exposure in some ways. It gets like people who like normally don't watch wrestling to kind of see what WWE has to offer. But whether or not it'll make a difference business-wise remains to be seen. So far, it hasn't happened with Netflix. And will it be any better with ESPN? Who knows?
Back when TNA was all giddy whenever Jeff Jarrett could get coverage of TNA on ESPN, I'd look at the ratings for SportsCenter and be like, because he'd be like on the morning, the ESPN morning show. And I'd be like, Jeff, TNA draws more viewers than the morning show on ESPN that you're all giddy about being on. Like, I mean, like SportsCenter does a couple million viewers. Raw does a couple million viewers. It's not like it's this huge thing. And like, oh, but ESPN had all this coverage. Well, who was watching the ESPN app 2 hours before the show went on the air? They had one row of fans sitting behind them outside that building. I don't know if you saw the pre-show, but like Stephanie's out there in the panel discussion, and there's not even a solid row of fans watching. And they had this whole setup like College Game Day, and they expected the masses to be out there. They had 20, 30 rows of space for fans, and they had at max like 3 rows of people. It was embarrassing. Yeah, it was just embarrassing. Like, people just want to watch wrestling. They're not enamored with ESPN, and they're not going to stand outside for 2 hours and watch a panel discussion with a bunch of sycophants pretending it's real when it's not, in a context that just feels kind of weird, when they just want to be in the building and experience the atmosphere because they're there to see the actual wrestlers, not the ESPN personalities and the announcers talk about it. I mean, I'm not against pre-shows, but like the people like, oh, but look at the publicity ESPN gave WWE this week. Well, what does that do? Like, do you think there's people who didn't know WWE existed, Kurt? Now but they watch ESPN, like, oh man, I forgot about WWE, but now that ESPN is saying they're cool, I'm gonna watch. Like, that's not, WWE wasn't hard to find. Like, it's hard to find PLEs right now because it's on this app that you got to jump through hoops to get or pay extra money for. But ESPN is using WWE to try to get people to buy their app, not vice versa. So I don't know. It's felt over the top. Sadler Vision 3 says WWE wants the public to see them as legitimate sports/entertainment, not a goofy, carny sideshow, which is what they've been portrayed as. Them shilling ESPN doesn't surprise me at all because of that. Well, it doesn't surprise me, but things that don't surprise me doesn't mean I have to agree with them or not speak out about them. Yeah, I mean, first of all, they need to get over people seeing them as a goofy, carny sideshow. WWE fans are paying massive amount of money, predating the return of Rock and Cena, to see today's current stars. And they're getting big money deals because people don't care what the mainstream sports snob public thinks about WWE. They just are entertained by it. Why does WWE need approval from anybody? They're doing great business. Sports athletes, as they showed in that cool video at the start, are imitating WWE wrestlers all over the place. So that this neediness by WWE for acceptance feels out of step and out of date, and they should have more recognition and pride in what they've accomplished than thinking they need ESPN to validate them, because frankly they don't.
Yeah, if this were 1994 or 1995, that would be a different story. But in 2025, yeah, they're good. They're good.
Yep. Kurt, anything else you want to bring up?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up tonight.
Sweet. Thank you, Kurt. Great talking wrestling. I always enjoy.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks everybody in the chat. You were very engaging. Appreciate all the variety of opinions and points you guys are making. And I'll point all of you to VIP membership. There's a lot that you're missing out on. If you're not a VIP member, you can get a ton of details on what you're missing out on by going to PWTorch.com/govip. PWTorch.com/govip. It includes our post-event roundtables, VIP exclusive. I hosted one Saturday night after AEW's pay-per-view, and then posted one on Sunday regarding WrestlePalooza. Full hour of analysis with Greg Parks on WrestlePalooza, start to finish, and some sidebar topics. It is compatible with Apple Podcasts native app, thus Apple CarPlay. You can also get it through Spotify or Patreon. Again, all the details at pwtorch.com/govip. Whole lineup of shows that are not featured for free. Plus, if you enjoy our free shows, you'll enjoy them more if you don't have the commercial breaks. And that's one of the perks of VIP membership. Thanks again, everybody, and we will talk to you next time. I'll be dropping the flagship episode on our Blue Logo show, the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling podcast, tomorrow. Pro Wrestling Torch columnist and analyst Rich Fan scheduled to be my co-host tomorrow. We'll have a wide array of topics to cover with him. So check that out. Search Wade Keller in your podcast app and subscribe, and we'll talk to you all then.